What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sun Belt Syndicate, the Round Ball Roundup. Ben also has a suggestion. He's already saying what's up to everybody, but he has a suggestion on a new name, so we may put that up to vote on social media here soon. But welcome Zach back to the show. He's been at the Myrtle Beach Invitational earlier today. Pretty much like an all-day venture for you, right?
Yep, from first game's at 12, the fourth game's at 8. So I left at halftime because it was getting late, and I think it was like a 19-point game at halftime. So I just left.
Yeah, that one we'll talk about here in a minute, but that one was ugly early. It actually improved after you left, I guess, really, technically. But yeah, Bradley's a pretty good basketball team, I'd say.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, we'll get into it later, but there was a few things I didn't like from Texas State either. But like we said, we'll get into it later.
Perfect. Good, because I did not get to take any of that one in. Was at my son's ice hockey practice, not basketball. He's not a basketball guy yet. Maybe never will be if he's in hockey, because that's kind of like the same time of the season. But yeah, we'll jump right in here. Round ball roundup for now. Still going with that name. And we've got Zach's logo and the Sunbelt Syndicate on there, and a Troy dunk against Oregon earlier this. I guess it was this week, right? Was that a Sunday night game?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Sunday.
So they at least didn't have to travel all the way across the country for a weekday game, I guess. But I guess it's still affected maybe Monday morning for them. We'll see. We'll have to see. Ben is currently playing Madden while watching the show. Nice. I have not. I've got no new systems to play any of the new games. Zach, are you a video game guy?
Oh yeah, I bought the PS5 over the summer just so I could get the college football game.
Nice. Are you good?
I'm all right. I mean, like I don't sit here and just like completely grind video games all day, but
right,
I'm at least decent.
Nice, very good. I was the type of person who would play more against the computer than online back in the day.
Oh yeah, me too,
Just
for sure.
Yeah, I would get creamed by people who would just run the same play because they knew it was successful over and over and over. I hated that. So, of course, I was probably guilty of it when I played against the computer a few times. So there's that to talk about too. But yeah, we'll jump right in. Again, we're gonna put up each and every game since the last time we had a show up on screen. We probably won't dive in deep to each one, but we will touch on it. So obviously, we did a live show last Thursday where ULM was playing, and by the time we were done, that one had completed. So we already kind of touched on that. So the first games that we haven't talked about since then did occur on Friday evening, with Old Dominion taking down Maryland Eastern Shore. It's like the longest name ever for a team in Maryland, I feel like. But they did win that one 73-71. And Georgia Southern, the first game of their Rock Hill Classic, they take down North Carolina Central 80-75. Did you get to take in these games live or check in on them at all?
I watched a little bit of the Old Dominion game. I didn't watch Georgia Southern because I don't think that was on ESPN Plus, but I kept up with it. But yeah, Old Dominion's first win with Mike Jones as their head coach, so that was exciting. And yeah, Devin Caesar's been amazing off the bench for them. He had 23 in this game. I think he's definitely their leading scorer and one of the leading scorers in the Sun Belt. So yeah, he's been big for them. A returning guy, not a transfer. So
right.
that might be even more surprising.
Yeah, exactly. With who they brought in, Sean. You're gonna have to help me with the last name. I feel like I read it properly in my mind, and then when I go to say it, I know I just butcher it. Duru Gordon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just how it reads. Yeah.
Okay. 15 points. So he had a pretty good output in that one. And Caleb Swanton Roger, 14 rebounds. I thought he'd be the shot blocking machine, which he's got some shot blocking ability, obviously, but he's a rebounding machine thus far. Especially in this game here. Now, I will say this. Is this a litmus test? I mean, this isn't a good test to know if ODU's any good. They're probably expected to win this one, right? Or,
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, it's a Division I opponent, so it's not like they're going out there and sneaking one past like an NAI school or anything like that. So, I mean, it's signs of an improvement from their first 3 games where they started 0-3.
Good point. Very good point. Speaking of a team that was 0 North Carolina Central was 0 before playing Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern wins this one just by 5 points, but they had a massive game by Nicavian White. Freaking 24.6 rebounds. Phenomenal game, but they also had some other players that stood out. Avante Parker was a name I think you mentioned before the season got started, to somebody to watch out for over there at Georgia Southern, correct?
Yeah, it was. I think that was his first game back too. He didn't play
Okay.
the first few games, and I was wondering why because I didn't see anything about injury. But yeah, he came back and had a good game off the bench for him.
Nice. Yeah, it looks like 12 points and 12 points on 6 of 7 from the floor for him on his first game back. And I believe he came in off the bench, right? I don't think he got the
Yeah,
start on this.
he hasn't started yet.
One thing that stood out to me a little bit. It's not something you see often. I feel like every single player on the roster in that game had at least 1 rebound, and 10 of those players had multiple rebounds. So they were getting after it on the boards against Central. Now, that could be because Central is not a great rebounding team. I'm not really sure. What's funny is they are local to me. They're probably a 15-minute drive to get to their gymnasium from my house. But I don't really know much about Central's basketball team. I know, as Ben just pointed out, they're up for the Celebration Bowl, but they did just get hit with a big penalty for some after-game punches, violence, whatever you want to call it. So the scuffle could play out and affect those possibilities. But yeah, Rock Hill Classic, good start for Georgia Southern there, and it continued for them on Saturday. They got the 2-point win, 89-87 over Winthrop. I don't know anything about Winthrop. Do you know? Historically, they've been a decent mid-major, but I don't know if the last couple of years they've really stood out.
Yeah, they haven't been the same since they lost DJ Burns, who was at NC State last year. But I mean, they're still always going to be a solid mid-major team in the Big South.
Gotcha. Makes sense. What about any of these other games that are sticking out? I would assume maybe you've got some thoughts on the Stephen F. Austin versus Arkansas State. Obviously, Texas State you just saw, so maybe that game against Abilene Christian. Our surprise team, I feel like, for both of us has been South Alabama. Maybe something against that Mercer Bears team, a pretty good SoCon team, right?
Yeah, solid team. Yeah, like you said, I'm surprised South Alabama's doing this good. I picked them towards the bottom of the conference, and they're putting it together so far. Miles Corey is probably if the season ended right now, 5 games in, he's probably the Sun Belt Player of the Year.
Yeah, that game specifically, 28 points and 4 3-pointers contributed in that one. So yeah, I've seen his name quite a bit too. So he is pretty good. Did you got to see Ogero tonight? That is not a name that stood out to me before the season started. Maybe I just missed it. But he has been coming on, and you can see that one against Abilene Christian. Texas State did lose, but he went for 23 points, 11 rebounds, and also had those 3 steals there.
Yeah, he got in some foul trouble tonight, but yeah, good game against Abilene Christian, even though they fell short.
Makes sense. Arkansas State, Ben said that they just didn't play well in that game against Stephen F. Austin.
No, I caught the first half of that game, and it was really sloppy from both sides.
Yeah, I haven't been blown away with Arkansas State just yet. Obviously, they've still got the record that looks pretty good overall. But yeah, I think they kind of they came on strong at the end of last season. Maybe they just don't hit their stride right away. Obviously,
they're missing Isaiah Nelson still, so yeah, that's a big piece for them.
And I feel like maybe, obviously, Kobe Julian's a great player, but when you're trying to integrate somebody into the lineup, maybe there's some learning curve about sharing the ball around and getting certain people on the court with their chemistry aspect. Maybe there's just a little bit of that going on, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. Todd's still playing very well. That game specifically, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 steals. And I think both of us had him on our preseason teams, right?
Yeah, I had him preseason first team in the Sun Belt, I believe.
Nice. Then saying Nelson almost back. Yeah.
I mean, I've been hearing that for the last, after the first game, I feel like.
Yeah, you'll believe it when you see it at that point, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, one last one we'll touch on before we move on to Monday's games there, because it does stand out to me a little bit. Towson is just north of James Madison. I think it's technically located in Maryland, but they go on to take JMU at home 67-63 in that one. That one a little bit of a surprise to you. I don't know if I would have thought Towson would win that one over a JMU team.
Yeah, that was a big shock. I picked James Madison, finished second, and then going on the road and struggling against the Towson team. I think they got off to a pretty slow start and then could never crawl back. But there was no streaming for that game, so I don't really know. I don't really know how the game played out and what was happening. So I can't really say much about like that other than statistically.
Right. Makes sense. There's a good amount of that going on, unfortunately, on this early part of the season. I feel like once we get into conference play, there's no issue. It's always ESPN Plus, but some of these teams playing host kind of change some of that aspect for what goes on. All right, Sunday we had a pretty good slate as far as matchups before they happened. Unfortunately, the Sun Belt didn't win any of them. Start us off with your team there, Zach. Coastal Carolina took on Jacksonville State. That one did not turn out too well, but is there something you liked, something you didn't like in that one specifically?
So D.A. Houston came back. He was like the starting point guard, supposedly before the season started, team captain. He came back, kind of like re-injured his leg later in the game. But yeah, I'm worried about Coastal just because if Rasheed Jones has a bad game offensively like he did today, there's no one to pick up that load for him. So they're gonna play defense, and their defense is probably gonna keep them in games. But as of now, they don't have a chance unless Rasheed Jones has a big game.
Gotcha. So they need that offensive output there.
Yeah, they need someone to step up for them, like as another guy that they can give the ball to late in the shot clock and let them go make a play. They don't have that other than Rasheed Jones.
Gotcha. Trevor Everett commenting, saying Towson is a good team, and that was a tough contest. They are predicted to finish first in the CAA, which we know has been pretty good the past couple of years. So thank you to Trevor for jumping in. He's the host of the 2 Pointers podcast. So if you haven't checked him out there, he's been on my show. I've been on his. Does a great job and was part of the guys who did all the preseason basketball magazine, everything college basketball magazine. So, that's still available for anybody who's trying to catch up on early preseason stuff. Well, not preseason stuff, I guess. It was preseason. It's obviously now getting quite a bit into it. Some teams are either warming up or you're finding out they're not very good. But I thought I was caught off guard by Georgia Southern here because they come in and they win those first 2 games in that Rock Hill Classic. William and Mary lost to the same 2 teams that Georgia Southern had just beaten. But then William and Mary comes in here and wins pretty easily, 102-87. Did that one surprise you with maybe what had happened previously in that Rock Hill Classic?
Yeah, I thought Georgia Southern would go in there and take care of business, but they got off to a rough start as well, and it was too big of a hole to climb out of.
Yeah, it seems like it was kind of close at the half, but then it looked to me like the biggest difference that I saw that stuck out to me here in this one was just the 3-point shooting. And I think I marked that down here. Yeah, 3-point shooting was the difference. William Mary, 16 of 44. Georgia Southern, just 10 of 33. So a little bit hotter from the 3-point line like William and Mary was. And Georgia Southern at least could have made this real close in the end. It looks like that was kind of where they've fallen off.
Georgia Southern also missed 9 free throws. So yeah, that's a big, and then they had 17 turnovers as well. So that'll lose you games right there.
Oh yeah, very much so. Trevor's got a thought on getting D.A. Houston was a ridiculous portal get for Coastal. He is a huge reason Longwood made the tournament over High Point. Yeah, again.
Yeah, he came in, he missed a few shots, and then you could tell he was working his way back from injury. And then late in the game, he kind of re-aggravated it, and they didn't put him back in after that. I mean, he was back fine on the bench, but I don't think they wanted to risk it.
Yeah, don't need to risk it yet, right? These games, in the end, don't. For a one bid league like the Sun Belt has historically been, it's kind of a building year for Coastal. I think everyone's recognizing that. Surprised that Troy didn't play Oregon a little bit closer, or is that kind of where you thought that game might end up with where Oregon's at, especially being undefeated at this point in the season?
No, I mean, it was pretty close for a lot of the game. And I mean, 20 points, it's not like the worst loss ever. Going on the road across the country. I think they traveled like the day before, like 24 hours before the game. So,
oh, wow.
So getting there 24 hour flight across country 24 hours before the game, and then putting up a decent effort against a good Oregon team was solid to me.
Makes sense. Jag Nation Radio jumping on and get ready to learn zone, box, and one defense. Yes, Zach, you got to get your thoughts on this. Trevor loved the ticket promo Coastal ran. Did you guys as students have a little laugh at that? People talk about that in town as something people got either kind of excited about for a certain reason, or did they think it was kind of a joke?
I mean, it's season tickets, so students get in for free anyway, so it didn't really matter to them. But I mean, it's a cool thing, but our girls team is 4-1, so that might be good, but they could have made it a better number. It's
that
35.
Makes sense, yeah.
I think 35 is a little much.
Yeah, seems like a lot for a first year head coach.
It's like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Yep. That does seem to be the case there. Jag Nation Radio says they wish more schools would do that. Likely increase to season tickets. Yeah, it probably would. People take the chance. I think some of those schools would be scared they might actually do it and then have to owe people money.
That's what. After like the first night, and Coastal looked good against Western Michigan, and the girls team went on the road and won against, I think, Central Michigan. Everyone was like, "Uh-oh!" Like, heck, maybe we might have two good teams now, but they might be safe on it this year.
Yeah, I think this year is probably safe. And Trevor saying they haven't achieved that number except once since like 2010. Yeah. Well, they've got a coach in place. They got a roster they're building back, but it may be a year or two away at least from becoming a reality. But we'll see. You never know. Just never know. Okay. Kind of a weak slate Monday night, so probably not a lot to talk about here. Georgia State hammers Toccoa Falls 106-66. ULM goes down to Southeast Louisiana, but it's the only Division I matchup of the night. They lost that one 70-67. And then South Alabama beats Spring Hill, beats the hell out of them, 95-61. I don't know. Was this one of those ones where like only one of these was an ESPN Plus game at this point?
I kind of watched some of the Georgia State games just because I was interested, because they threw in a few different lineups and had some guys that don't usually see the floor play significant minutes. Like Jelani Hamilton had 30 in his first start, and he was playing under 20 minutes a game, I believe, before that. And then Clash Peters, he's a freshman. He was committed to Coastal, and then when Benny and Cliff left, he decommitted, went to Georgia State. He's been really good for Georgia State, so I was interested to see him a little bit as well. But once it got a little bit out of hand, I switched to the end of the Southeastern Louisiana ULM game.
Makes sense. That one looks like clearly the best game of the night in that one. Was that a game that ULM had a real shot to win, or was that one that got closer at the end with some foul trouble?
No, like Southeastern Louisiana was pretty much in control, like the 5 to 10 point lead for most of the second half. But late in the game, I think they were down. ULM was down 4, and Southeastern Louisiana had the ball. ULM stole it and hit a 3, put them down 1, and then I think they got another turnover or something like that. So they got the ball again with a chance to win it, and then they missed a shot. So, yeah, it was. I mean, Southeastern Louisiana was in control for most of the game, but ULM definitely did have a shot towards the end.
Okay. It looks like Judah Brown, that's not Judah Brown, that's Broom actually there for South Alabama was the leading point getter in that one against Spring Hill with 14 points, 9 rebounds. But I know Drew Brown was sticking out to me in an earlier game that I had noted down.
Yeah, he's shooting the ball really well.
Yeah, that was a game against Mercer that I had him noted down for, not this one specifically. But let's see. He had 9 in this one, so wasn't too far off the pace, although they had 4 players in double figures on that point total there for that game against Spring Hill. Let's see. Trevor's got something here with the non-Sunbelt world. Baylor just hit a buzzer beater 3 to beat St. John's 99-80 or 99-98. I think that was that double OT, Trevor. I don't know. Were you checking that one out, Zach? Before we went live.
Yeah, I think that was just one overtime. I believe.
It
was double overtime. I just saw it on my phone.
I was looking at it right before I jumped on here with you, so I think I did see it was going to double because I don't think I checked in on it after that. But that's an incredible game because both those teams. That was a double ranked game, right? Both of those teams ranked.
Yeah, I think St. John's is like 21, Baylor's top 20.
Nice, incredible finish there. I'll have to definitely go check that out. Jag Nation Radio saying they're really confident in South basketball this year, which is funny because neither one of us were. But we are more confident now after this hot start that South Alabama's experiencing, so they can be proving us wrong really quickly here. But you're saying Riley looks like he's found his scheme. Yeah, I think he's a coach that the guys seem to like, that's for sure, from what I've seen on social media. So I don't really have a whole lot more insight than that, but we'll see. I got to see an interview with him and the head coach from App State, Dustin Kearns, and both of them seem like likable dudes as far as people are concerned. Again, their basketball coaching prowess, I'm not going to be the best at dissecting, but as far as hanging out and talking with them, definitely seem solid in that regard. All right, Tuesday, November 19th, we had 4 games. Probably the biggest one going into the night, I'd say, was Rice versus Louisiana. Would you consider that the best one of the slate of the night? Is West Georgia a Division I team that you know of?
Yeah, they're new this year. This is their first year Division I.
Which makes sense because they're sitting there at 0-5 after losing to Troy in that one, 84-65. But yeah, that Louisiana score caught me off guard. Going in, obviously, with Rice having a better record, it wasn't a shock that they beat Louisiana, but have the Cajuns hosting that one and losing at 83-61 at home is a rough look.
Yeah, that was the game I was most excited for, just to see what Louisiana looked like, because I haven't really seen them much this year. And I turned it on in the first half, watched a little bit of it, and then I turned it back on the second half. It was 54-51. Rice was up, and Rice went on like a 15-2 run or something as soon as I turned it on. So I turned it back off. I was like, oh, maybe I'm the bad luck, but yeah, not good for the Raging Cajuns. They're definitely missing Hosanna a lot.
Yes. Yeah, Kotinga is going to be a huge loss for them for this season, unfortunately. Hopefully, well, I don't know. I would assume he's going to need at least one more year if he hopes to play any further basketball, right? I mean, he was a senior, right?
Yeah, but he's medically redshirting, so he'll have another year of eligibility if he wants it.
Nice. Ben is saying that the Red Wolves also play Rice in the Nassau tournament down there in the Bahamas here shortly. So that'll be interesting because we'll be able to have a little gauge of where each team would sit if they played each other after both playing a common opponent. Obviously, we know that's not really the easiest way to dissect these things, but it gives us something in the early season to kind of gauge overall. I did get to take in a good amount of the Queens versus App State game, almost all of it. And I don't know that. App State, when you look at the scoreboard, 65-53 come away with a win. I don't know if you got to check out some of this one too, but I have App dropping off a little bit this year. Huntley goes off 27 points on this, was incredible point total for him. Queens has had, a Division I team for a few years now, right? I think it's 2 or 3 years. Maybe even Trevor's watching. He can tell us because I don't think they've been around a long time in D1, but could be wrong. A team kind of out of that Charlotte area. I just think App State has a lot of growing to do. Kind of similar maybe to what I've seen out of JMU thus far. I think JMU is probably a little bit better positioned with their skill players, though. But App State is definitely going to have some work to do to catch up to what they did last year on the court. Did you check this one out at all, Zach?
I kind of had it on like the background, like so like I wasn't really paying attention to it much, but I had it on. I was looking at every once in a while, and like you said, I wasn't really impressed with App State that much, even though they got the win. Just yeah, like you said, you can tell there's some growing pains. When you bring in 11 new guys, it's going to be rough at first.
Yeah.
They're not all going to gel immediately. I mean, they might have a full summer to try to gel, but it doesn't really matter until the lights are on. So, yeah, they're still finding themselves a little bit. I saw that his name, Wilson for Queens. I saw he had like 4 blocks on the first possession of the game. I was like, I was like, how's this guy not playing for like Purdue or like Kansas or something or UConn? But they kind of kept him in check after that. Jalil Boburn came back, but he only played like 12 minutes. Was he in? I don't know if he was in foul trouble or if he was just.
He may have been in a little foul trouble. I'll be honest. This was one of those nights where like the lack of sleep was catching up to me, and I was kind of dozing in and out throughout.
Yeah, he fouled out in 11 minutes. So
okay, yeah.
He
didn't have any kind of wrap on his hand, which is what he had injured when he did get hurt. So I mean, he seems to be kind of 100%. But like you said there, that one more about the foul trouble. Trevor's letting us know it is the third full season for the Queens team, and play in January, figuring themselves out. Queens can win by double digits. It's a great win for App. Yeah, I mean, that's why I said it's a good win. It just wasn't impressive when you did the eye test wise. Like it just wasn't great there.
Yeah, maybe at the end of the season we look back on it and it's like this is a good win. But like right now, just watching the game, if you go back and watch the game, there's nothing much to be impressed about with App State. And Alonzo Dodd was a guy that I thought was going to be big time for him. He didn't play again. I don't know. He's only played like 1 game this year. I don't know if he's hurt or if there's something else happened, but that's just something else to note for me.
Yeah, I didn't even note that. Like I said, this was one I didn't have like the notebook out for. I was really just watching, laying on the couch, and like I said, dozing in and out, trying to enjoy this one. Trevor says Wilson is his ASUN Defensive Player of the Year, which I think
he might be National Defensive Player of the Year. He's averaging like 6 blocks a game.
Yeah, that's crazy. He says Coach Leonard loves that kid.
He's absurd.
Crazy. But that will wrap up that one. Wednesday, we only had 1 game. I was blown away by this one. I mean, South Dakota State's a good basketball team. I thought Southern Miss was a really good basketball team too. They played a lot better in that second half, a lot tighter, but they got blown out in this one, 101-76 versus South Dakota State. I mean, only game of the night. Was this a plus game?
No, it was on some other streaming service that I do not pay for.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. We got enough streaming services we all pay for. Trevor's saying 27 from Huntley is impressive because they will need that. Yeah, and the only other player who hit double digits was Miles Tate. So the 2 returning players for App State were the only 2 that really stuck out, which is a little worrisome with what you thought you were bringing in and hopefully developing along the way. But same thing with Southern Miss here, though. They had some guys coming back. They have some guys they brought in that I thought were going to be pretty big contributors right away. And I don't know, either South Dakota State's just that damn good or Southern Miss has not started the way they wanted to, which I guess you could say is a fact at this point because there's no way they thought they'd start 2-2 on the season. I don't think anyway. I thought they'd start a little better than that. Yeah,
I did too, but both the games they've lost, UAB and South Dakota State, they've just got off the super bad, sluggish, slow starts, and it's been too much for them to climb out of. And then in both games, they played well in the second half. It's just when you go down by that much that early in the game, it's hard to get it turned back on. So it'll be interesting. I didn't watch it obviously, but saw some people on Twitter, Southern Miss fans, wanting to see more of the freshmen that didn't play much, but they said they looked good. So disappointing start, but we'll see if anything changes.
Is that it's not Kobe Montgomery. This is a freshman, is it?
There's Jet Montgomery.
Jet
There's
Okay.
Christian Reed, and then there's Brewer Caruth. There's 3 freshmen that don't play a ton of minutes, but from what I've heard from Southern Miss fans, they really liked them, especially in this game.
Yeah, it seems like man, that's the longest bench list I've seen in any of these box scores by far. So it looks like they run a deep bench. They have some guys who only went in for 1, 2, 4, 5 minutes. So it's not like all of them are going deep. But when you're cycling guys in and out, maybe you're trying to figure out the chemistry. Maybe like you said, in a game like this where you get down early, you're just trying to get something going, get somebody going off the bench who has been sitting there and just trying to spark something. We'll have to see what happens there with that as they continue to go along the way. Trevor says the Summit League Network for that one. You refuse to pay $9.99 a month or $80 a year for Summit. Yeah, that's
it's like
high
Flow
cost.
Hoops.
Yeah, Flow Hoops. I heard
Flow Hoops is even more expensive.
That's what I had heard.
I remember Coastal played a game on it last year against College of Charleston. I went and looked at the subscription. I was like, oh, maybe it's like $5 or $10, and I'll pay for just for 1 month. And I looked at it, and I immediately clicked off.
Wait, it was like 13 or more.
I think it was like an annual subscription, but I just remember it was something absurd when I checked last year. It might have went down, but yeah, it was not worth it.
Jeez. Oh, man. All right. Well, we'll wrap up the game looks. These 2 important ones, I feel like, especially since you were at the final one there. But a boardwalk battle game between James Madison and UIC. Do you know what UIC stands for off the top of your head?
Illinois, Chicago. University of
There you
Illinois at Chicago.
And it looks like, ESPN's famous for doing this, so it makes it a little easier. If they are a D1 team, they typically have a logo, and if they're not, they typically don't. They are a D1 team as well? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So is that what you would consider an impressive win then? The 99-81 victory over them, or?
I mean, before the season started, I would have thought that they would be doing something like this, being a UIC team by 18. But with the way both teams been playing, I watched a little bit of UIC in an earlier game, and they looked really good. So
Okay.
Bryce Lindsey was like 10 for 11 off the bench, had 28 points. Yeah, so he's a big reason why they won. And I just looked. Flow Hoops is, if you get the monthly subscription, it's $30 a month, and if you get the annual, it's $150 for a year, or $13 a month, $12.50 a month. So
take the chance on Coastal Carolina basketball tickets, folks, because that's a better deal.
Yeah, might as well.
Oh man, that's insane! $30 a month if you wanted to see one team's game. I mean, if you were very seriously considering a drive to one that's somewhat local but would cost you like well over $100 or almost $200 to like take people to and get to, yeah, maybe that's a deal that you're willing to have a couple buddies come over and watch it with you. But
also, it's like it was over winter break. Like if it was during like the school year, I might as well just drive down there and watch it. Like an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. Like might as well just at that point just go down there and watch it for like the same price.
That's crazy. Yeah. Merle Sports says obligatory F Flow Sports. All my homies hate Flow Sports. Yeah, I don't know anybody who likes Flow Sports. Trevor brought up the point. It's expensive, but it does help the programs a lot. But
probably just the CAA fans, because the CAA hoops is on there, so that's the only way to watch a game. So they probably like Flow Hoops just because they can watch it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But Trevor is noting you can also get a huge discount through the school. So
I mean, still,
I'm guessing you have to be a member school of Flow. If that makes, I don't know if they consider a member
or like
sports,
like affiliated with the school or something, or like have a code from the school or something like that.
Yeah, Trevor says otherwise I'm not defending Flow. Yeah, I haven't heard anybody else really defending Flow like that. So talk to us about this Bradley Texas State game. I know you said you left this one a little early, but how good
I stayed for the whole
look?
I stayed for the whole game on this one. I left at halftime of the Wright State Princeton game.
Gotcha.
Which was a little shocker because Princeton was considered like maybe the favorite of the tournament, and they got blown out. But
wow.
Texas State, Bradley played really good defense in the first half. Like Texas State couldn't do anything. Yeah, and then Bradley just hit the shots they needed to hit. If there was any space, they're hitting it in the first, especially in that first half. And then the second half, Texas State looked a little better. They clawed back in it a few times, but it was never enough. And then Bradley pulled away again late. But I think I checked at one point. Texas State was like they ended the game like 2 for 9 from three. Like first of all, in 2024, taking 9 threes is not going to win you basketball games, and then only making 2 of them is definitely not going to win you basketball games. So I think they had like 3 or 4 guys out though. That they've had 3 guys out all year: Benson, Mark Drone, who they were super high on, and then Frank Emu, who's a transfer from UMBC who shot almost 50% from 3. So maybe it's just their shooters are out, but yeah, they did not look good today.
Yeah, that's like you said, to hear someone shot less than double digits when it comes to 3-pointers is a little shocking. You've got teams like we just said, what did William & Mary and Georgia Southern shot combined over 70 3-pointers in their game. So yeah, some team coming away with just 9 attempts is very shocking and surprising at this point. Vernal Sports thinks we should ban Liberty to Flow Sports. I won't change your mind. I'd like to banish them pretty much all the way around. But I don't know if Zach has some thoughts, since a former coach of his is now over there at Liberty coaching a football team.
Yeah, let's just say the students here do not like Jamie Chadwell anymore.
Easy to know, easy to understand why.
Yeah.
Yeah, Red Wolves have a daunting task as they play Indiana State Rice Hofstra in the Baha Mar Hoops tournament in Naz. Man, that's a mouthful right there. And Trevor wants to know your thoughts on Duke Dean from Bradley, preseason player of the year.
He didn't. You could tell the talent was there. You could tell. You could tell why he was maybe preseason player of the year, but he didn't shoot particularly well. He was 3 for 9 from 3, but he was gunning for sure. And then towards the end, I think it was like the last possession of the game, maybe like they were like dribbling out the clock or something, and he just went down with like a knee injury, limped off the court. But he was fine. He walked through the handshake line like perfectly fine. So I wonder what that was all about. But Bradley as a whole, their ball movement and their shooting is going to make it hard to beat in their conference. And then if they can play defense like they did in that first half more consistently, yeah, they might be a scary mid-major team.
Nice, good for them. They're usually a pretty scary mid-major team, right? I mean, they've got a reputation for being pretty, maybe not like consistently every year type of thing, but every time you do hear about them having a good year, it feels like it's almost a tournament year for them. I feel like.
I feel like the last like few years they've kind of been out of it a little bit though, so maybe they're on the track coming back a little bit.
Makes sense. Hofstra, the hardest team for Arkansas State in that tournament, but they can win it. Yeah, I think they can. I hope they will, especially since they're the only Sun Belt team out there representing Vernal Sports and Ben having a little side conversation there. But that wraps it up for the games that we've now been caught up on, actually. So there's nothing left except for what's coming up on Friday's slate for us. So take a quick look at the standings. Obviously, 0 conference games played thus far. So this is just all out of conference stuff. And you've got Arkansas State and Marshall up there towards the top. I realize I didn't align these things real well here. But yeah, you can kind of move them over just slightly slanted, I guess, if you're looking at this with us right now. We have 0 victories over anybody in the AP or USA Today poll, which isn't really surprising. I don't know how many of us thought some of those victories were all that realistic coming into the season with what a lot of these teams had lost. But I don't know. Is there any early season surprises as far as the record is concerned for you, Zach? I know you're going to talk about your power rankings here in a minute, so that can be incorporated into that. But maybe anything specific that sticks out to you on these standings.
South Alabama, I think, is the obvious one.
Yeah.
Like we said, a team that we picked towards the bottom. Um, I'm a little surprised about who is it? I had him on my mind earlier. It might have been Marshall. They looked really good this past week. A team that I was skeptical of had two big pieces injured for the first few weeks of the season, but they're coming on strong. And then Louisiana, even though they don't have Hosanna, I still thought they'd be a solid like middle of the pack,
Yeah.
maybe even still a sleeper team because they have some talent on the team. It just hasn't come together. They're obviously missing a, a force in the middle.
Yeah. I'd say that they definitely are disappointing thus far for sure. Like you said, we knew it was going to affect them, but I did not see 1-3 start coming. That's definitely not like a blowout at home. 1-3 start overall. Didn't see that coming for them. I'm trying to think if I had. Well, I mean, I had ULM as my kind of surprise team. They're off to a 2-4 start, so not great. Although 2-1 at home, okay. 0-3 on the road, that's not going to be good.
Their only
Seemed
two
like
wins are against non-Division I schools as well.
yeah. So that's not going to bode well for me at all. Although that Southeast Louisiana game gave me little hope that they might be getting a little bit better here. I do think that's one thing that stuck out to me. I don't think we've talked about this before, but it seemed like the Sun Belt teams really struggled on the road, especially anybody that was like middle of the pack and down, like just cannot win road games. Obviously, App State and JMU up towards the top last year, and Troy all did pretty well on the road, but everybody else seemed to struggle pretty well. Is that something that is?
I mean,
that you've seen a lot across the board? Is that?
Well, all three of those teams last year all had like a ton of returning pieces as well. So this early in the season, we've mentioned like a lot of these teams have 8, 9, 10, 11 new guys, and then going on the road into hostile environments, maybe flying across the country, or maybe not even like a better team, just a team that has a little more continuity. And knows each other a little better. I mean, that matters a lot. Just knowing the instincts of your teammates and where to be at what time and what this player is going to do, what this player is going to do, and just knowing your teammates. So they're just figuring it out. I'm sure that their away records will get better towards the end as we go on.
Makes sense. I can agree with that. All right, so let's go to how we'll wrap things up here with your power. Ooh, that came in kind of fancy there. I don't know, I was trying to load up some fancy loading screen. But yeah, I tried to make this a little bit more organized. Zach's actually is very organized. It's just that doesn't translate well directly from Twitter or X. So I kind of copied it. I copied his homework. I cheated on my test. But yeah, I moved it over here with just some bigger graphics so we can read it a little bit easier and he can give you a little bit more detail because at this point, you're the only one doing it. I'm not doing my own power rankings yet till I get a better picture of what I have to look at because I haven't gotten to take in as many games as you have. So I'm going to lean on you as the expert, which is really not hard to do because everyone can hear from your mind how much you do know and how much you're watching of Sunbelt hoops right now. So why don't you go through your power rankings and give us a little spiel about anybody and everybody if you want to.
Yeah, let's just start from the top. Arkansas State. They beat Stephen F. Austin and Little Rock this past week. Like I said, I do my my power rankings from Monday to Sunday. So that's just those are the two games that they played in that week, and there's no reason to move them down. Winning two games at home, and both of them pretty handedly, by double digits. Troy, I could have moved down, but they went to Arkansas top 20 ranked team, and they played them really good. They were up at half, and they just fell from them late. So not really discredit much there. And then they went to Oregon and played pretty decent there as well. Just like I said, a little bit later, kind of fell apart a little bit more. But and then there was really no teams below them that I thought deserved to be ahead of them. Really, maybe Georgia Southern if they would went 4-0 because they beat Augusta, NC Central, Winthrop, and then they lost to William Mary. Maybe if they beat William Mary, went 4-0 last week, I could have moved them up to 2, but yeah, they went 3-1 with a blowout loss to William Mary. So
Yeah.
I don't really think that's enough to move them ahead of Troy. James Madison, I moved down. They beat Marion Baldwin, but then they, like we said, lost to Towson at Towson. So nothing really to hang your hat on. Still fourth in the Sun Belt in my eyes. Or, like as of now, they might really be the most talented team in the Sun Belt. But in terms of
even more so than Arkansas State, you think?
I think in terms of pure talent, they might be first. Yeah.
Okay.
Just in terms of like the individual talent from top to bottom, I think they might be the most talented team in the league. But yeah, so fourth. I just thought Georgia Southern did a little bit more to earn themselves to go up versus just staying at 4. Southern Miss, their only win was Loyola, Louisiana, which is a non-D1 school. But I moved them down. I moved them up only because I moved Texas State down. That's because they went to TCU and almost pulled it off actually at TCU, which was a really good game, but they fell short and then they got blown out by Abilene Christian.
Yeah.
So go 0-2, get blown out by Abilene Christian. And then the team below you goes 1-0, even though it's against an inferior opponent. Maybe move them up a little bit. South Alabama was my biggest mover this week. They went up. Actually, I take that back. They're my second biggest mover this week. They went up 3 spots because they went on the road to Ole Miss, and
yeah, that was good.
We talked about last week. They hung in there, and then Ole Miss just pulled away from them a little late. They lost by 10, and Ole Miss is a ranked team, so yeah, that was an impressive. Even though they lost, it was an impressive game, and then winning against Mercer was like you said earlier, a solid mid-major team. Marshall, they went up 4 spots for me. I had them, like I said, I had them towards the bottom, but they got Spear back, they got Mingo back, and they're playing better. They blew out Southern Indiana and Bellarmine. I mean, neither one of those is like the best Division I schools, but it's still teams they should have blown out, and then they went out there and did it. And these other teams I'm about to talk about didn't do that.
So yeah, because they all fell, right?
Yeah, so they deserve to be moved up ahead of them.
Gotcha.
Coastal losing at NC State, like a lot of us Coastal fans, students, we were impressed by that loss, losing by 12, but hanging in there with a team that just went to the Final Four, even though it's a much different team, just still hung around. A lot more positive than it has been the last 2 years. But the big one was getting blown out home to Jacksonville State. Like I said, just they got no offense other than Rasheed Jones. They need someone to step up and be that second man that if times get rough, they can count on them too. Louisiana, they went to Houston and got absolutely blown out by 46. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much expected. But yeah, you can't not drop them after losing by 46. So
yeah, that's pretty bad.
Georgia State, they went to Jacksonville State and they had a good lead for a lot of that game. And then so I stopped looking at the score and then I looked back at the score and all of a sudden Jacksonville State was about to win. So yeah, they didn't. It was kind of depressing. I look back at the stats that didn't shoot well in that second half. So, yeah, there's improvements that need to happen, but I think next week they'll probably move up a little bit. App State, they didn't play at all last week, but I still moved them down just because some teams below them, one team below them, Marshall, just deserved to be moved up, so had to move them down. Old Dominion went 1-1 last week. They lost at Radford. It was kind of a disappointing game. They got off to a slow start. Like a lot of these blowouts are, they just get off to a slow start and then can't dig out of it. So, yeah, and then they won at home against Maryland Eastern Shore, who they're supposed to beat. Right. And then ULM still my bottom team. They lost at Rice by 16, and then they won a game against a non-Division I school that I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I think we tried to pronounce it last week, and
Yeah, I think you let me butcher it pretty good.
yeah, I'm not even going to try it. But yeah, I don't beating up on these non-Division I schools, these Division III, these JUCOs, these NAIs isn't impressive to me. It doesn't. You don't deserve to be moved up several spots just because you won a game. Like
Yeah,
you're supposed to beat these teams by 50 because you have Division I talent and they don't. So
right.
yeah, so that's how my that's how my power rankings are this week. And like I've already worked on it a little bit this week. I kind of just try to go day by day and try to work on it day by day. So there's already some movement. I think there's going to be a lot of movement in like the middle of the conference this year. I think it's like that in football too. Like
Yeah,
you have the top 3 or 4 teams, and then you have the bottom 2, 3, 4 teams, and then the middle is just going to be constant up and down, up and down. So interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see if anyone can go up there and compete with Arkansas State, Troy, Georgia Southern, James Madison, or if some teams are really bad and they're stuck down there with a team like ULM.
yeah. Very, very interesting. Like you said, ULM down there at the bottom, and it's hard to disagree when, like you said, they don't have a single Division I win yet. So
yeah,
it's hard to, like you said, reward those types of victories. So I like the way you do it. I like the way that you're saying like some of these things matter, and you're like, well, typically I might not move them otherwise, but because the other team did get this small victory, maybe it's not a huge victory or surprise, but I am rewarding one and punishing another.
yeah, like
I like that because these things should have movement. This is what people want to see. They want to see if their team's going up or down. So
yeah, like if
I like the fact that you're not afraid to move some teams around, even if it's just a slight thing that you think is going on.
I mean, if you go 1-0 in a week, and maybe you squeak out a win against, let's just say, some other mid-major school, and then the team above you, let's just say they didn't play a game this week, they went 0 for 0. Well, that's not fair that you can't move up just because that team above you didn't play a game. Like
Right.
you were better than you were last week, or at least you performed better than you did last week. So, I mean, in my opinion, you deserve to get moved up. I think we see that in football a lot, where like teams have bye weeks. Like the teams in the AP top 25, they have bye weeks, and then they'll still somehow move up, or they'll move down, and everyone's like freaking out. Well, it's like if you move down, it's like maybe it's just because the teams below you had a good performance.
Yep. That's
So,
absolutely true. Yeah. You can't sit there and wait for everybody else to catch up, right? Like sometimes things aren't equal, and that's okay.
yeah, and eventually you'll get the turn where maybe you play a few games in a week and the team above you only plays one. So
Yeah.
and then if you perform well and let's just say you go 3-0 that week and they go 1-0, I mean, maybe you do deserve to be moved up ahead of them again.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I totally agree with that. Ben wants to know for giving everyone the name suggestions for the show. Yeah, I'm going to put it up to a vote on a poll, I think, because we'll get more interaction on that than the show, especially at the end of the show. But Red Wolves are in top 10 mid-major, top 25 rankings. Yeah, as they should be per College Insider. So, yeah, I think when you're the favorite coming into the season and you haven't done anything to change those thoughts just yet, and like Zach has been saying, it still got a player coming back who's supposed to be really good and help them in Nelson. So yeah, I can see why they're well thought of and continue to be well thought of until otherwise proven. But yeah, I think that's probably going to wrap this one up. Zach, I mean, you got any closing thoughts, any upcoming matchups you're really looking forward to before we go again next week?
I mean, no, I really I haven't looked at too many of the games. I think, like he said the chat, I think Arkansas State plays Hofstra in the tournament. Yeah, like I think that's gonna be a good game because Hofstra's in the CAA, picked towards the top of the CAA, so and they're pretty comparable leagues. Maybe Sunbelt's a little bit better, but yeah, matchup that I didn't know about that I was a little excited for. And then obviously I'm excited for the Coastal Carolina games, but they're playing two schools that aren't really the best either. So there's probably not too many other people excited for those two games.
Yeah, I saw IU
IU,
Indianapolis.
Indy, yeah, and then
IU Indy.
Alabama, A&M.
We do have a really big one coming up this Saturday, and this is why we're going to go again next week before the holiday, if we can make it happen. Marshall goes to Purdue. I don't really think they have any shot there, but that's an interesting one. That if it's close late, that would be.
I mean,
be interesting.
Knowing my history with Purdue, it probably will be close. Just because Purdue, especially this year, just because they don't have Zach Edey. They're still trying to figure out that big man rotation. So they're gonna have to, if they can control Braden Smith a little bit and then hit some shots, I think they can be in it late. Like we've seen it with Yale, we saw it with Texas A&M, Corpus Christi. And Purdue struggled against these smaller schools so far this year. So
interesting. I'll definitely be trying to check that one out. We got a couple on Monday too. We got, not that there's a huge matchup, but William and Mary goes to App State. So another little small version of a litmus test where you say William and Mary took care of Georgia Southern. Now what happens against App State? Where do you think App State and Georgia Southern may match up when you kind of compare that? Old Dominion gets a chance at Boston College. That's probably not going to go too well, but we'll see. That one's down in the Cayman Islands. And then Southern Miss travels to Montana State to take on the Bobcat. I think they're Bobcats, Montana State Bobcats.
When are they travel there Monday?
Yep.
They're probably staying up there.
Sunday night. I'm sorry, these are Sunday night games. Let me correct that.
They probably stayed up there from because they were at South Dakota last night, I believe.
Oh, that's right. That makes sense. Yeah, might
so
as well get another game in, right?
Yeah, and it's Thanksgiving break, so it's not like they're missing like a crap ton of school or anything.
Good point. I think, and we can say it out loud here. Our goal is to maybe go Tuesday night. Is that what we're planning on?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. It looks like we would have maybe one game going on, or maybe wrapped up depending on what time we do the show. But that'd be Western Illinois at South Alabama, because the Austin Peay goes up against Georgia State at 2:30 that day. So probably that one will be wrapped up by the time we go live. But Purdue took down Alabama.
They did.
This year? Was that last year? As you talked about?
That was this year. That was last week, and then they got blown out by Marquette.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was little side note. This was Fletcher Loyer and Braden Smith, who's the starting point guard, shooting guard for Purdue. That was their first non-conference loss in their history, in their college career.
Jeez, that's
crazy. Outside the tournament, obviously, because they've lost in the tournament, but
right.
Non-conference regular season, that was their first loss.
Wow.
So maybe that's a little bit like of a point where maybe obviously Purdue's not as good as they were the last few years because they don't have the 2-time National Player of the Year. Right. So obviously they're going to get worse, but they're still a good team. I would still probably expect them to blow out Marshall, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Marshall hangs in there and it's a 10-point game with like 5 minutes left, and they're kind of just hanging around.
Nate Martin, Anno Chili Killing, maybe. Those guys. Is that was it Spear, Jalen Spear coming off the bench?
Yeah, Mingo's been lighting up for him.
Maybe. Well, we can hope.
They just gotta try to keep that crowd out of it, which is next to impossible. It's next to impossible there because it's one of the best fan bases. It's sold out every single game, and no matter what, they're going to be losing their minds. But if they can just quiet them at least a little bit, it'll go a long way.
Nice. Well, hopefully we'll have some cool stuff to talk about for next Tuesday. Again, that'll be a kind of a short order turnaround, but again, we wanted to get one in before the holiday, and we have a few big matchups that we will be talking about. Of course, that one that we just discussed will be probably the hot topic, especially if Marshall does keep it close or pulls off a stunner. I think that'll wrap it up for us this evening, and we will see you guys next week before the Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks for tuning in.